I'm the president of our local League of Women Voters of Buffalo, Niagara. And we're delighted to be here tonight to help with this forum. Just a reminder, the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that encourages informed and active participation of citizens in government. The League works to influence public policy through education and advocacy, and moderating candidate forums is only one of our many functions. Membership is open to everyone, age 16 and up, and the League is not for women only. I like to believe that the W stands for wise voters. So please check out our website. It's lwbbn.org. There's some literature in the back of the room about what we're doing and some of the issues that we're working on. And so we're going to get going with this. Tonight our moderator is Ramona Gallagher, and our volunteers working tonight, our timekeeper is Mary Egan, and Deborah Cohen is checking our questions to make sure that they're all legit. And Janet Goodsell is here to help with catching the questions, and so is Jessica Kent. So if you have a question, just raise your hand up. And so Ramona, do you want to take over?
Thank you very much, Lauren. Again, good evening. My name is Ramona Gallagher, and I'm delighted to be back at the Amherst Senior Citizen Center to do another candidate forum. And I do want to emphasize it is a forum, not a debate, so we will get right into it. I get to do the ground rules for candidates tonight, so follow with me. The League of Women Voters of Buffalo, Niagara will not permit substitutes for candidates at debates or forums conducted by the League. A candidate must be present at a forum conducted by the League to present his or her statement and to display campaign literature. If a candidate cannot attend the debate or forum, he or she may submit a brief statement that explains his or her absence to be read by the moderator. Presentations should be strictly confined to issues, not personalities. Candidates drew numbers already this evening to determine their order for opening statements. The closing statements will be in reverse of the opening statements. Election materials should not be in the meeting room, but we have provided for that to be done at a table right outside this door. So we've invited the candidates to put their materials there, and we encourage you to stop by there to see what they have brought with them. The candidate forum should conclude at approximately 8 o'clock. Some of you may be eager to be out of here by then. There's a football game, I think, tonight. If needed, we certainly welcome all of the candidates who will be happy to talk with you during the second half of the evening, if they have a chance, but whose opponent failed to respond. Again, we need at least 2 candidates, if there are 2 candidates, for each position to hold a forum. So what we call the empty chair, there's some argument about that, but we believe that maintains our non-partisanship in dealing with this. We will make only the authorized recording of this event. It will be posted in its entirety on the League's YouTube shortly after the event. Only licensed media, including TV, radio, and newspapers, are entitled to air a portion of the recording in keeping with the Federal Communication Commission regulations. All others who air the recording may do so only in its entirety. No one is permitted to publicly display edited footage, comments by opponents, or paraphrase quotes in any manner. We also request that the audience turn off your cell phones, please, at this time, and keep them turned off throughout the event. We expect that the audience will be attentive and civil and make no responses to what the candidates say, whether you agree or disagree with their views. We also request that you refrain from applause until the forum is completed. We ask this to seek to provide all of the candidates with the greatest amount of time to respond to audience questions. Our format for tonight's forum. Our timekeeper will raise, and I would ask that Mike Egan, our timekeeper will raise a green paddle when the speaker has 1 minute left, a yellow paddle when there are 20 seconds left, and a red stop paddle when time has elapsed. The candidates are expected to stop when completing the sentence being spoken at that time, and we ask that you kindly adhere to that rule. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. We suggest biographical sketches and a platform outline are usually presented. The questions, each candidate shall have 2 minutes to respond to each question. If candidates need less time to respond, we will be able to ask more questions, which means if you don't need to utilize your whole time allotment, please, we'll just pass the microphone back and forth so it expedites everything. I will be asking written questions that are submitted by you, those of you in the audience. League member Deborah Cohen, is the young woman sitting to my left, is screening those questions for vulgarity, profanity, appropriateness, and redundancy. All questions must be directed to all candidates. In other words, the same question will be asked of each candidate. I ask that you keep that in mind. And questions will be asked of the candidates in a rotating order. Closing statements. Each candidate shall be allowed 2 minutes for a closing statement to summarize his or her thoughts or reiterate points brought forth during the meeting. This forum is designed to be a dialogue between the audience and candidates. Again, it is not a debate, so there's no cross back and forth. Candidates for Erie County, we will begin with this evening, and their names as drawn in the order, and I'm going to ask them to come up as I call their names. First, Mr. Mark Polenkars, excuse me, and secondly, Mr. Dwayne Whitmer. If you'd come to the front and take a seat, or if you wish to use the podium, that's up to you. But if you want to sit or stand from being seated, that will be great. So, gentlemen, I will be happy to repeat any question if you need me, sit right there, to do that when it's your turn to respond. It is important that each one uses only as much time as needed to respond to the questions. We can move to the next person without any introduction. And again, at this time, then, we will be, before I begin, just some housekeeping, because some of you may have some questions, and I apologize. I do want to indicate that some individuals could not make it here tonight, but did notify us that unfortunately they had existing prearranged commitments and could not be here. That's for both the 5th and 6th Erie County Legislative Districts, so I'm sorry that we don't have the benefit of those candidates being here tonight. Ms. Janine Vanal is here, but her opponent is not here, but she will be here, I'm sure, to talk to you at any time. The opponent, Richard Wilkinson, notified us that he did have another appointment. I also heard that Ms. Casilio's campaign manager, I think, notified us that she had other appointments as well. So I believe that we have everybody else in order, and there may be a judge candidate for Amherst Town Court. I haven't seen that person yet, but perhaps I believe she will maybe show or not. Again, these individuals will be available to talk with you after we finish. So at this time, I'm going to turn this mic over to Mr. Polenkars, and we will begin, and you can choose to come to the mic or not.
Thank you, everyone. Good night. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. I truly appreciate the opportunity to be here today and talk with you about the issues in Erie County.
Mr. Polenkars, sorry, I'm sorry. If we could just start again so that we have the timing, I don't know. Okay, Mr. Polenkars, sorry.
Good evening. I'm Mark Polenkars, I'm your county executive. It has been the privilege of my life to serve as your county executive, including during this last term, which was probably one of the most tumultuous times in our community's history. Going through everything that we did between COVID-19, the horrible mass shooting in East Buffalo, and then the November superstorm and the December blizzard. We have a great team in Erie County, and I'm running to continue that. But for those of you who know my background, I practiced law for a number of years before I ran for the county controller office following the red-green fiscal crisis. If you remember that crisis where Erie County basically went bankrupt, I ran to be the controller to help clean up the finances of Erie County and was given the opportunity to serve, and and lucky enough to serve as controller, and we started getting the county back in the right direction. And then in 2011, I did not like the direction the then county executive was taking the county. He used to say he wants to run Erie County like a business. Well, government is not a business and should not be run like one. It can be run effectively, it must be run efficiently, but you don't run it like a business because there are certain services that a county government provides that no business would ever take up. For example, child protective services. You don't make money on child protective services, but you have to provide it to ensure that the children, our most valuable, precious resource, are protected. We worked very hard to create this new Buffalo, this new Erie County, since I was given the privilege to serve as county executive, and we've done it. When I was elected, the unemployment rate in our community was 8.9%. It's now 3.4%. We have the lowest property tax rate ever in the history. We've reduced the county's debt by $187 million. And along the way, we've created this new Buffalo, this new Erie County, where the population is increasing. I'm running for one more term to continue to work to create the best county possible. I ask for your support, and I thank you for all being here tonight. Thanks.
Please hold the applause. We ask, otherwise we will be here forever. Thank you. We'll say that to the end.
Time is ready? Yeah. My name is Dwayne Whitmer, and I'm the third-party candidate for county executive. I'm originally from Franklinville, New York. I went to Fredonia State. I graduated in 2009. In 2014, I launched my own accounting practice, mostly representing small businesses and individuals, and that grew into helping people fight the IRS, which has become a rogue agency. The reason why I decided to run, I needed to get 1,500 signatures in April and May from any registered voter in Erie County, blanks, Republicans, Democrats, Independents. And we focused our efforts on Cheektowaga, Hamburg, and Wasenica, population-dense areas. And I got screamed at every day I was out there. And it wasn't because they hated me, it wasn't because they were mad at me, it wasn't because they didn't like what I had to say. It's because a lot of people have given up. They've lost faith in the system, they've lost faith in politicians, and they've lost faith in what's going on. Currently we have a system where you have two parties that are similar to warlords, fighting over a jobs and influence program, fighting to maintain status quo, and fighting to maintain, making sure their donors and friends get paid back. And a lot of people have been forgotten. Small business owners, working class. A lot of people have been left behind. They see rising taxes, rising grocery bills. They see a lot of problems with what's going on, but they see no solutions. They see no future benefit. They see no change, no hope. If I look around this room, I'm 35 years old. A lot of people my age have given up. They no longer believe in the central bureaucracy that is government, and I'm running to hopefully give them an option or a choice and let them know that there is still hope for the future. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you guys for having this event, and thanks for the invite, and that is all for me. Thank you.
Again, please hold your applause until we finish the complete question. Okay. All right, our first question then goes to Mr. Poloncarz, and then we'll go to Mr. Ricketts. What is your position on the proposed Metro Rail expansion along Niagara Falls Boulevard?
I do support the expansion of the Metro Rail. If you look at our transportation issues we're having, and all you had to do was look at exactly what was happening trying to get south today, every major route was backed up. We have a growing population. Sometimes people question that, but we do. We actually have a growing population. First time in 50 years, the population of Erie County has grown, and it is the city of Buffalo and the northern suburbs that are actually the ones that are growing. I think it would be beneficial to extend the Metro Rail to the University of Buffalo and beyond to allow individuals who otherwise travel from the north towns to Buffalo, or as is often the case today, travel from Buffalo to Amherst for jobs, to be able to take the Metro Rail, which is not only an opportunity for expansion of the public transportation, but also is cleaner. We are dealing with climate change. The biggest, number one provider of fossil fuel exposure, so to speak, in our community is transportation. The more vehicles we can get off the road, the more we'll be able to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions and then hopefully play our part in reducing costs associated with ultimately climate change. So I do support the expansion of the Metro Rail, not just to through Niagara Falls Boulevard and to the Boulevard Mall, but the extended plan, which actually would take it up to basically the 990, and the hope that it would reduce the amount of traffic, which I think we all agree in Amherst, traffic is a big concern. The more vehicles you can take off the road, the better, and hopefully better quality of life you will have.
I would support it, but there would be some asterisks. One thing you see when the government invests money is, we'll use the Buffalo Billion as an example. Corporations came in and they promised things. They took $1 billion, and if you recall what happened with the Buffalo Billion, a couple people did some kickback schemes and went to jail. That is very common with these projects, and I would support something like this, but if the government's going to undertake a massive spending, I want to make sure that the bid system is proper. Unlike we're seeing with the migrants in Western New York, DocGo was a no-bid contract. There was no bid in that. $500 million, no bid contract. If you read the news, DocGo is in trouble for mistreating the migrants. We look at the Buffalo Billion, we look at the Bills Stadium. There's a lot of taxpayer money being spent, and sometimes the taxpayers are going to get higher tax bills and a larger burden of cost on something that's not cost effective. So if we're going to do something like this, I would want to have independent accountants and auditors auditing the bid process, the spending, and making sure that it's a wise investment of your taxpayer dollars. Just doing something to do it is not always beneficial. So that's my thing, is I would support it with some pretty broad oversight over that.
You can keep the mic, Mr. Whitmer. We'll start the next question with you. What is your opinion on illegal immigrants being in Amherst?
What I think is going on with the migrants right now is government-sponsored human trafficking and money laundering. As I just mentioned with the DocGo contract, New York State awarded $500 million to DocGo. It is now coming out that DocGo is treating these people very, very poorly. It has essentially been a massive grift from your tax dollars to a private company. Someone made a lot of money, and these people who are living, breathing human beings are being mistreated. Videos will come out. I was actually able to, thanks to Letitia James, actually, she just put out something saying that the migrants have First Amendment rights to talk to the press. We were able to interview some of the migrants staying in the Dingens Hotel in Cheektowaga, and now some in Amherst. And what they say is they're being fed baby food, stale food. They're being mistreated. If they need health care, they have to go to where they're checked in at. Well, they're checked in New York City, so they have to go to New York City for health care. They can't have a driver's license, they can't get there. How are they getting health care? What happened was politicians used this as a way to appeal to people's emotions. We need to help people, we're bringing them in, and then politicians are getting their photo op with them, especially in New York City, and then once the cameras walk away, they're being dropped like nothing. Another example is this, is that they're not allowed to work for 180 days after their papers are processed. Well, with a massive backlog, these things are taking forever. So even if they wanted to better their lives, they cannot work. They cannot help the community they're in. They're stuck essentially prisoners of the state. They're locked in the hotels, and then what happens is the state brings National Guard in. Why the National Guard? Because it's not the local police responding to the complaints. In allowing the local police to respond to the complaints, you can foil what's going on. The National Guard is much harder to see what's going on with the issues there, and that's what's happening. It's kind of an out of sight, out of mind thing for politicians. So my issue with the migrants is, in the government trying to do a good thing, they've botched it pretty poorly, so that's it.
Can you just please repeat the question?
I can.
Because I think the question said,
What is your opinion on illegal
immigrants?
Illegal immigrants being in Amherst?
The individuals that are the asylum seekers are not illegal immigrants. They are legally in the country. People may disagree. Remember Daniel Patrick Moynihan, our former U.S. Senator? He had a very, very perfect phrase. You're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. And the individuals that are at both the hotel in Amherst, as well as 2 hotels in Chickawaga, are legally in the country. People may not like that, but under the rules, they're legally in the country. And they have an opportunity to pursue asylum, and many of them have already applied for asylum. I agree with Dwayne, DACO is a mess. It was hired in a no-bid contract by New York City. And the information that we were originally told as to what they were doing has not turned out to be accurate. It's one of the reasons why my administration demanded that New York City contract with Jericho Road, a local refugee resettlement agency, to come in and assist them on the asylum seeking as well as healthcare aspect of them being in this community. On an average basis, Erie County has more than 2,000 refugees, asylum seekers, and immigrants who pass through our community every year. It's one of the reasons why we've had an increase in population in the city of Buffalo. Most people don't realize it because they don't deal with it. Right now, we're dealing with about 520 total asylum seekers between Chickawaga and the town of Amherst. Since the National Guard was brought in by the governor, which is at all locations across New York State, not just here in Erie County, there has been a better system and less issues. Interestingly, and I'll just finish with that, we found out from the Amherst folks that there was more crime that was being committed at the Red Roof Inn in the period before the asylum seekers got there than after, because it's unfortunately a well-known location for prostitution and drug sales. It isn't anymore.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question. We go back to Mr. Poloncarz for this question. What is your plan to develop Erie County's economy in the next 4 years?
Well, it's a continuation of what we've been doing, but also ensuring that we are creating the best community possible by going after economic development projects that truly do benefit our community. I think you all know we've been working very hard in my administration to redevelop the old Bethlehem Steel site into what is now the Renaissance Commerce Park. When I took office as county executive, it was an abandoned site that had been abandoned for nearly 40 years. And people said it's never going to happen. No one's ever going to do anything. And we came in working with assistance from the federal government through Congressman Brian Higgins, as well as New York State from the former governor and now the current governor. And we just rolled up our sleeves and said, this is a project that's too big for the private sector to take on, but we can take it on and make it happen. And since then, we had Welded Tube of Canada open up its first American operations there. Sucrose Sourcing is a Brazilian company that's a sugar refinery that is its first major United States operations north of Florida are here. You probably all have a product in your house that is made by TMP Technologies. It's the Mr. Clean Magic Eraser. It's made right here in our community. We're going to continue to do those types of projects, not only at Bethlehem Steel, but the plan is to open an agricultural-based industrial park in the town of Evans, and then to work with our partners to ensure when we bring new businesses to our community, we really do get a bang for our buck. And the bang for our buck is the jobs that are created. I'm very proud of the rule that we put in that said if you want a tax incentive from our IDAs, you've got to create the jobs. If you don't, we're going to take your tax incentives back. What is the Amherst IDA talking about doing right now? Taking back tax incentives from a company that did not create the jobs. That's what it should be, and that's what I'll continue to do as county executive. And we're also looking at opening up some other areas for development so we're not continuing sprawl. We want to rebuild some of these old brownfields and turn them into new economic sites.
Can you repeat that real fast for me? Thank you.
Yes. What is your plan to develop Erie County's economy in the next 4 years?
Perfect. As an accountant, I deal with mostly small businesses, like I said at the beginning, and we lost 65% of our clients since COVID. Massive inflation, massive tax increases, and just a general loss of faith in New York has left them to either leave, go out of business, they can't cover their bills. I would like to see cutting regulations, permitting requirements, and other licensing, occupational licensing to allow not necessarily large businesses that have to come here, we have to bribe them with IDs and tax dollars, but to allow the average person to open up a business. New York State is currently one of the least friendly business states in the country. It is one of the highest tax states in the country. those things make it harder for people to open their own businesses, and once those businesses are open, to continue to stay in operation. If you read the news, restaurants are going out of business left and right, small businesses are shutting down. I live in Hamburg, and the Hamburg IDA gave $6 million in tax breaks to Amazon, and Amazon put a factory on Route 5. That factory's been vacant for now 2.5 years. Their tax breaks are coming up, so now they're trying to do something and get it going. My question is, why not $6.2 million in tax breaks to the small business? The people on Main Street that live in the community, stay in the community, work in the community, they matter too. So often we use tax breaks to cover up the glaring deficiency our state has with the high cost of taxation. We bribe large companies to come here through tax breaks. They come here for a few years, those tax breaks expire, they leave. New Era in Derby is a great example of that. Now we're bribing another company to come there. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, but once those credits expire, they too will leave. We see this in the news all the time. I would like to empower the average person to make it easier for them to open a business, sell their product, and function as part of the economy as well. Selling out to large corporations often ends pretty poorly, as again, I'll bring up the Buffalo Billion. Focusing on developing the community from a smaller level is where I would focus. So that's what I would do.
Okay, you get the next question first.
Yep.
Would you please identify who your top 3 donors are?
Oh, I don't need 2 minutes. I'm self-funded. I've done very well for myself. Started my company, and I statistically know how third parties work. We don't win much. And so I didn't feel right taking money from people under the guise of trying to win. If I don't win, they felt like their money was spent poorly. So I'm 100% self-funded. I've done well for myself as an accountant, and so that's it. That's my, Dwayne Whipper is the biggest donor, so that's it. Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I'm not exactly certain who the top 3 donors are in this election. I've received donations from across a broad spectrum of business leaders as well as individuals. Actually, I have one person who every week donates $2. and I thank him because he does it online. And then I have others who have donated $10,000. It is available online. You can see it at the New York Board of Elections site. You can look up every candidate's donations and see who they're coming from. The one thing I'm not having done, which is being done attacking me right now, are called independent expenditures. It is dark money, so to speak. There are limits on how much people can give to candidates. There are not limits on how much you can donate to a PAC. For example, there's a new PAC that was created. It's called Our Town. It just started yesterday, and my opponent got a $95,000 donation to that PAC, not to her, but to that PAC, even though she could not accept a $95,000 donation. I should say my opponent, not Dwayne. He's self-funded, as you noted. The opponent who's not here, which says a lot, but they just created an independent expenditure, this PAC, and one individual gave $95,000 to that PAC to run a commercial, which is on TV today. That's the bad part of donation, are these dark entities, these PACs that can come up like that and then all of a sudden be spending hundreds of thousands, or if one person wanted to, $1 million against one person in a race because of these PACs. I've always believed that whether it's on the local or national level, those types of super PACs, those political action committees should be banned. Just give money to the candidates or not. But you shouldn't have these super PACs.
Okay, next question starts with Mr. Colin. How can we afford borrowing money for the football stadium, and what is our current county debt?
Good question. We actually are putting 250, let me lower this, it keeps on getting, is there feedback? I hear feedback. I'll lower it. It's originally was a $1.4 billion proposal in which we negotiated so that all cost overruns are paid for by the football team. So the county is committed to $250 million. It's now projected to be a $1.7 billion proposal. It's still $250 million coming from the county, $125 million of which is coming from our piggy bank, our savings, another $125 million which we plan on borrowing. One of the things I did in my administration, because I knew we were going to be looking at this potential cost in the future, was to go on a debt diet, so to speak. Even though we're doing lots of investing, We've reduced Erie County's debt load by $187 million since I took office. So even if you include the $125 million that will be added to our debt, it's still lower than the amount of debt we had in county government when I took office back in 2012. You need to borrow money for major projects. It is absolutely mind-boggling the cost of road projects and construction projects right now. Concrete and steel are two of the largest things that have grown in cost in inflation. And road projects that just 10 years ago may have cost $2 million are costing $8 to $10 million, and that's bidding it out to the lowest responsible bidder. It's not just handing a contract to someone. So what we're seeing in not only the football stadium but other things is you're going to have to borrow more to do some of these larger projects. But while we're borrowing $125 million for that project, we've been able to reduce our debt by $187 million, so we're still going to be in a better position than when I took office in 2012.
The question is, how do we afford the stadium? We can't. We borrow it and we make future generations pay more in taxes to cover it. I think the bigger issue is $500 million to fund the stadium was stolen from the Senecas by New York State. New York State promised the Senecas that they wouldn't hold casinos, and then New York State said, well, you guys are making a lot of money in those casinos, we're going to do it too. The Senecas sued. There was a lawsuit ongoing, and recently Kathy Hochul used KeyBank, which was where the Senecas banked, to essentially steal $500 million from the Seneca Nation. If you go onto their territory, you will see some of the poorest areas of Western New York is the Seneca territory. And when that money was stolen from them, their paychecks bounced. People working on the territories couldn't afford their bills because they were given a paycheck, the money was no longer in the account. The Senecas have earmarked this money to rebuild their territories. It was earmarked for senior living centers, it was addiction and poverty support, and it was to train their people on their heritage, who they are, what they're about, and to train them into skills to better themselves in the future. That is money that they no longer have, and it went to Terry Pagula to buy a bigger yacht. That's where that money went, and that's a bigger issue. If you look across the country, Green Bay Packers have done something where they sell stock. There were other ways for us to raise this money. Like I said, Green Bay, they sell stock. They raised $250 million, $300 million through a stock sale. A worthless piece of paper other than said Green Bay stock. You can't vote, you don't get dividends, it doesn't appreciate in value, but the Packer fans were able to buy these stock and help Green Bay raise money for their expansions. And I think these are things that should have been explored and looked into, allowing the public to buy into something and spend the money that way. So that's that.
Okay. So Whitmer, to you at this point, what changes would you suggest be made to the Erie County Ethics Board to make it free from political influence and guarantee freedom from political influence in the future? Want me to repeat it?
No, that's perfect, thank you. The first thing I would change is I would make them voted for by you guys. I think that they're currently appointed. If you open it up to the voters, you're at least allowing the voters to decide who's on the committee. I think that's the first thing I would do. Secondly, I would elect better people. I would suggest that you don't have to worry about the ethics of people that you're electing if you elect, no offense, Mike, I'm sorry, I gotta catch that. But that's really it. I was open it to the people. I would let it be voted in by the Erie County voters and give them a choice and who's doing the watchdog, and I'll see the rest of my time. That's what I have to do, sure.
Just so people understand, the current charter allows for Erie County, or charter and law allows for Erie County Ethics Board. It requires one. It requires that the appointments are made by the county executive, but you can't have a certain more than 2 people on the ethics board be from the same political party. So it has to have like multiple representation from political parties. And then the county executive makes the appointment for stated terms. You can't fire that person, they stay there for that term. And the legislature will then approve or reject the appointment. And that's what it's been like since they created the ethics board decades ago. I look at it this way. When you look at Erie County's ethics laws, we have some of the strongest ethics laws on the books. And the importance is ensuring that elected officials, commissioners, do not financially benefit from the decisions that they make. That's what the ethics laws are there to do. And in no situation has myself or any commissioner or anyone, at least during my administration, benefited from the actions that we take as an elected official. Because you don't want a county executive or a legislator trying to get contracts so they benefit from it financially. And that's what this is all about. It's about ensuring that we do not have individuals in government who are trying to benefit themselves financially by taking actions to help their private corporations, their families' corporations, things like that. And I think it's a good system. It's worked well. There have been critique, we'll not deny that, but we don't have the situations like you do see in some other communities and states in which companies that are owned by the elected officials are getting the contracts for their government, and that's just wrong.
Next question. Gentrification has driven people of color, long-term elderly residents, and working-class people from their homes and their neighborhoods across the community. How do you plan to ensure that growth and economic development do not displace people who have occupied homes in gentrifying neighborhoods for generations?
And gentrification is a huge problem in what's called the fruit belt area of the city of Buffalo. Individuals who've lived in those homes, families who've had them for decades, are selling them because they're making so much money on them, which is a double-edged sword. You don't want to have gentrification and have individuals move out, but you also want people to have wealth. And if they can sell their home and make $400,000 on a home that just a few years ago was worth $50,000, that's not a bad thing either. So the issue is you got to have affordable housing. You got to have housing that's affordable across the community. In Erie County now, we have a program where we're investing $20 million into two different types of affordable housing pools. One, which is to build single-family homes in areas where they need it, infill housing. If you go in some parts of the city of Buffalo, it's not uncommon to drive down and see neighborhoods where there's one or two houses on a street where there used to be 100 because of demolitions. It's also like that in Lackawanna and Goal and some other parts of our community. So we have a program where we're going to put $13.5 million into that. It's not giving the houses to the individuals. They have to take out a mortgage, but we subsidize a portion of it, and then we require them to live in the home so they don't flip it and then make a profit off it. So we'll require them to live in the home for at least 15 years, probably 20. We also have another program, $6.5 million, in which we're going to assist with low-income, affordable housing for more larger projects like apartments. One of the biggest issues we have right now is senior housing, especially affordable housing for seniors. And there's not enough being built. Why? Because it's very expensive to build these types of projects, and there's not as much money to be made. So we're looking at providing $6.5 million through an RFP process where the developers come up with their best ideas on how we can utilize the funds and invest it that way so we could create more affordable apartments across our community. This is a big issue, especially in the rural section where they just don't exist.
Whoever asked that question is going to hate me, but there's not a lot we can do. One of the downside of economic growth and development is property values increase and you make more money. You can't prohibit people from selling their homes and making money. You can't prohibit a business from buying a parcel of land. So this is the downside of essentially economic growth. That being said, the reason why affordable housing is so hard is because Erie County and especially Buffalo have sold out to a handful of developers. They get all the perks, they get all the breaks, they can do whatever they want. They come in and build something, and they don't care if they lose money or not. They can sit on it. Benderson Development is a great example of this in Hamburg. There are multiple levels of vacant storefront in Hamburg that is owned by Benderson. They don't have to negotiate what they rent it for. They don't have to negotiate lower rental costs. If it sits vacant for a year, they get the tax write-off. We've sold out to large developers that have no benefit in actually having their places occupied. Making it easier for, again, I say this, but smaller landlords owning one or two structures, one or two places. If you own a home with a duplex, if you don't get that site rented, you're losing money. Then that benefits you to rent it at any cost, whether it's $100 a month or $10,000 a month. Your incentive to rent it is because if you don't, you are losing money. When we sell out to the large developers and corporations, they can hold things and have the loss that they don't care. So that's really that.
Okay, this may be our last question. We'll start with you, Ms. Wood, going back. What are the top 1 or 2 issues do you see that need to be addressed at the county level? Most important issues.
I think the biggest issue in itself is that 25% of our money comes from state funding, and if you look at the state budget, they have a $9 billion shortfall, which is projected to go to $13 billion in a few years. Relying on state funding and state resources to keep the county going is going to be a problem. I don't know how much longer the state can operate at massive deficits without massive tax increases or insolvency or cutting massive benefits. That's issue number 1. Issue number 2 is empowering the individual to understand that relying on your community, relying on yourself to do more as opposed to relying on essential bureaucracy to take care of you is the solution. I would like to push a campaign that empowers the individual, whether it's in a snowstorm, whether it's in a shooting where you are your own first responder and being prepared for something like that. I think that's a good use of county resources, preparing people for any incident that can occur at any time. If you read the news, you're seeing them happen more and more. So those are the 2 issues that I would see coming up in Erie County.
Well, Dwayne is right on the first issue. It is a big problem because New York State has some serious financial difficulty, and I'll give you an example of it. Our budget is growing for 2024. It is growing by a significant amount. 75% of that is because of new state mandates or continuation of existing mandates that are in place. We were receiving a benefit under a federal program for Medicaid. I say we, I mean counties in general. And it was a $25 million savings. All counties $25 million for Erie County, all counties were receiving savings based on your population that used Medicaid. New York State just said, you're not getting that savings anymore. We're sweeping it, which means Erie County now has to come up with $25 million more to pay for our Medicaid bill next year. And that's the first of what will probably be multiple issues associated with our budget in the state. Why does this matter? Because 90% of our budget is mandated by New York State. The vast majority of the services you love, like including being here at the senior center, and the senior nutrition programs, the roads, the sheriff's road patrols, the parks, libraries, are not mandated. It's the health and human services and other types of programs that are required by New York State. So that, I think Dwayne is correct. Number 1 is one of the biggest issues. Number 2 is not so much a county issue as government, but county as a community. If we need to grow our population. There was an article by David Robinson that talked about how we have the same amount of people working as we did prior to COVID. We just have thousands of jobs that are open because we don't have enough in-migration of people into our community to fill them. If we're going to compete against other parts of the United States, or for that matter the world, we need to be able to fill those jobs. The days when people would work 3 jobs are no longer with us. We need to find ways to bring more people in this community so that we can grow.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much. That concludes this section of our forum tonight. At this time, I would ask that we have our closing statements. So, gentlemen, we will reverse and start with Mr. Whitmer for a closing statement. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you guys again for coming. Thank you guys for having me. 545,000 people left New York State last year. They're fleeing high taxes. They're fleeing crazy authoritarian government. They're fleeing terrible business environment. And that's a trend that's been ongoing for about a decade. And they're leaving, they're going to Pennsylvania, they're going to New Jersey. They're not all going to Florida and Texas. It's not about the weather. It's about the insanely high cost of living here. Well, why does it cost so much to live here? Because we have an insane cost of government pushed onto the taxpayers. And this is a trend that will continue. I'm 35. I know, and everyone in this room knows someone who's leaving the state, and they have nothing good to say when they leave. We need to reverse these trends, and it starts locally. It starts in Erie County, and we need to do all we can to make sure that we make it easier for people to start a business, not harder. We make it easier for those businesses to stay open, not harder. We make it easier for those businesses to function, not harder. And I feel like the last few years has been nothing but more restriction on businesses, especially the small business at the cost of selling out to large corporations who have no incentive to stay once their tax benefits run out. So this November you have two choices. You can vote for Team Red, Team Blue, and or the status quo, you can vote for someone else. I had to go out and meet 1,500 independent, blank, Republican Democrats and listen to what they had to say, and they're all pretty upset, they're all pretty disappointed, they all feel left behind. I would appreciate your vote next month. I appreciate your time here, and I look forward to answering any questions. If anyone has any questions after this, I look forward to answering them. Thank you.
Thank you, and I want to thank Dwayne for being here. There is another candidate running for county executive who's not here. She did not show up to the League of Women Voters event in Aurora. She's not showed up in a lot of places. And I think it's important, if you're running to be the chief executive officer of a county as diverse as ours, you should face the voters. You should face the people and the questions that they ask. And that's why these events with the League of Women Voters are very important, because they allow you to ask the questions. So thank you for showing up. Thank you, Dwayne, for being here so we could actually discuss these issues. It has been my pleasure to serve as your county executive. It is truly an honor. It hasn't gone exactly as we thought. I have to admit, when I ran and won last time, I didn't think I was going to run for a fourth term. But I had no idea that we'd be dealing with 2+ years of COVID, the mass shooting, which was horrible, the November superstorm, the December blizzard, and other things that happened in our community, even to the point of the DeMar Hamlin incident, such that a lot of the things I wanted to accomplish in this third year just couldn't get accomplished. They had to get pushed back because there were more important things to address, like the life and well-being of our citizens. So I'm running for one more term and only one more term to continue the work that we've done, to have the lowest tax rate ever in the county's history, to continue to reduce our debt in the long run after we do the bill staking, to ensure that our population does increase, because if we're going to compete in a global marketplace, we have to have the people willing to do it and work in our community. I'm proud of the work we've done. There's more work always to do to create the best Erie County possible. I ask for your vote, which you can start on Saturday with early voting, or on November 7th, which is not only election day, it's my birthday. So I hope I can have a good birthday, and I ask for your vote and support. No matter what, just please get out and vote. Thank you all.
And asking some excellent questions. And we will move on to the next segment. Just give us a minute to get reoriented here. So I'm going to, yes, sorry. Robert Gilmore, right names, I've got Michael Zuccow and Shelley Schmidt. So we thank them very much for all appearing here tonight. So the process will be pretty much the same. We will go in the order in which they are sitting. And again, I will be happy to answer any questions that you need me to do. When it's time to respond, it's important that each one uses only as much time as needed to respond. And again, I will introduce the candidates in reverse order statements for your concluding statements. So we'll begin with opening statements for the Amherst Town Board candidates with Ms. Marinucci. Opening statements, you can stand or sit, however you prefer. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, well, I'll stay seated, everyone. Nice to see you all tonight. Good evening. My name is Angela Marinucci. I am the Commissioner of Erie County Senior Services, a mom of 3 daughters who attend Maple West Elementary School, and an attorney by training. I am a resident of Amherst, and I love it here. But as I watched my children grow, I wanted to make sure that I had a more active role in their continued development and in the community that we have chosen to live in and raise our children. I grew up just across the border in Niagara Wheatfield, where I went to high school, and I am different than a lot of people, but I think there are a growing number of us that left the area for college and the beginning start of our career, and then chose to come back here because we love Western New York, we see Western New York growing, and we want to be part of that continued growth. I have 3 friends who have purchased homes in Amherst within the last 6 months, and I see that continued growth happening. It's an exciting time to be here. In my day-to-day practice as the Commissioner of Senior Services, I help older adults live full, active lives here in our community. As the county executive mentioned, they are non-mandated services, so it is an everyday getting out, speaking to older adults across the county to see what they need and the ways that we could best respond to them. In the evenings, I volunteer. I work with my children. I'm a coach for Girls on the Run, a Girl Scouts volunteer. I also am part of different organizations, including the Women's Top Fund and the Jose Andres's, I can't think of what it's called, but the Feeding the Hungry organization. I have been long passionate about being a servant to my community members in the ways that we can continue to build. And so as I do raise my children here, and I look forward to what Amherst looks like, I want to make sure that it continues to represent the place that they should be, which means preserving green space, building community connection, and keeping our high quality services. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bob Kilmore, and I'm running for town board. I've been a resident of the town for 44 years and had the privilege of serving on various boards for 38 of those 44 years. During that time, I had the great opportunity to work with many department heads and certainly all of the elected officials during that span of time. And our goal was always to provide the best services possible and making the goal of the constituency of the town first. My goal is to a quality of life. Quality of life meaning looking at strong public services, police, fire, highway, making sure we've got the right kind of funding available for them so that when they're called upon, they can perform the services that we need them to do. All right. As far as certainly with controlling of taxes, we know that we've got some issues out there with things, and as it was brought out in the presentation earlier today, there's mandates out there, that things that we've got to deal with, but also we want to reprioritize where some of our spending is going and how we're dealing with it. Quality of services, absolutely positivity. Quality of service is important. You folks have demanded those through the years, and you deserve that. We want to make sure that we can properly fund those kinds of services so that we can make sure that you're happy with what's going on. And lastly, smart growth. Smart growth is something that's referred to in my eyes, now these days is redevelopment. Redevelopment of some of the things that we've talked about, for instance, the Amherst State Park, the finishing of the North Town Plaza, and just other things out there. The workings looking at Eggertsville, Snyder, Williamsville, and the surrounding communities and areas that we can help some of these businesses to redevelop. And lastly, affordable housing. All right, Ms. Marinucci brings up a great point about seeing people move back into the area. I've got one of my daughters is not in the area. We want to make sure we can keep our kids here. We need affordable housing for those kids. Thank you. I'm Bob Gilmore.
Hello everyone, my name is Mike Sukala and I'm your current sitting Amherst Town Council member. My background includes my accounting degree from the University of Dayton. It's a four-year Catholic school. I have my MBA from UB. I'm presently Erie County's Medicaid Inspector General and the Corporate Treasurer for Hansley and Sausage. Why vote for me? Well, I'd like to talk about what I've been a part of over the past 4 years as a town board member. And first of all, Station 12 moves forward from what it used to be a near paralysis. Plant Show will be occupied next year, contributing to the tax base. I'm proud that I've been a part of that. The Boulevard Mall. Courts have supported the town's petition of eminent domain. Demolition is planned to begin next year, and the underperforming property will soon become a residential retail town center. The town is working with Benderson and Jamal to make this a reality, and I'm proud to have been a part of that. Amherst Central Park has moved from an unused, contaminated eyesore to a planned community central park. A park that can be used by your children, their children, and their children. Shovels will enter the ground this coming April springtime. All this and more during COVID. Town services such as plowing, police, fire, and senior services were still maintained, and this was done with fiscal responsibility. Town debt has been reduced. Expenses that were once borrowed are now part of the town's operating budget. This saves debt and interest payments. We've preserved green space, and Amherst is in the process of planting over 1 million trees. LED streetlights have been installed. This saves energy and lowers costs as they are replaced less frequently. There's still more to be done. I hope that you'll be asking me to do that on November 7th. I'm asking for your vote to make that happen. My name is Mike Sukala, and I'm your current Amherst Town Board member.
Hi everyone. First of all, thank you to the League of Women Voters, and thank you to all of you that are here tonight. My name is Shelley Stratz. I'm running for Amherst Town Board, and I'm running because of people like yourself. I've been in the town of a resident of Amherst for over 50 years. I wasn't born here, but raised here with my mom, and she was widowed at 33, had 5 kids. We moved back here because her family was from here. We lived in the village of Williamsville, and we were blessed because my mother was welcomed, and so were we. And we didn't have very much. But I learned what it is to work hard. I learned that 10 cents is a lot of money when you don't have 10 cents, and never take anything for granted, especially those that you care about. So, I also own Bing's Restaurant. I've owned Bing's Restaurant for 34 years. COVID really kind of did a job on Bing's, and while it comes back, it would go away, it would come back. And my mom got really sick. And we were fortunate that my mom could live next door to us. And she did. And she died there next door to us too, this past September. And all I'm going to say to you is that this town does not have the transparency that it had in the past. When I was on that board, I got a lot of things done, but I didn't do it alone. I did it with the department heads, I did it with the employees, I did it with the highway, I did it with the lawyers, I did it with the supervisors, I did it with the Democrats, but more important than that, I did it with the people. I always asked the people the questions, they gave me the questions, I went and found the answers. And there are a lot of people that didn't like the answers that I came back with, but they were the honest truth. Right now, I'm telling you, I'm running for one term, and my reason for one term is to find more people like yourselves, younger than us, that are willing to run for the town, to take away this political nonsense, because it is that. And as we look around the world today and we see everything on the news, and I hate the news, and I'm sure most of you do, we walk outside and where did Amherst go? Where did yesterday go? That's why I'm running.
Okay, we'll start with the first question. We're back with Ms. Marinucci. No, just stay where you are or stand.
Do I start again, or?
Yes, yes, those are opening statements. So we're
Okay.
starting with the question.
Hello again.
Okay, first question, sort of a A and B question. What do you, and this is the same question that we asked the teacher, what do you see as the top one or two issues facing the town of Amherst, and what specific action or actions would you take to address those two issues, one or two issues?
Wonderful. So I have spent the last 8 months knocking on nearly 3,000 doors in the town and talking to hundreds of residents all across our community to understand what they need and what they're looking for. I'm proud of that record and happy to put it up against anybody else in the way that I have directly connected to see what people are saying. And what they're saying is that they're concerned about infrastructure with continued development, and they're concerned about their housing prices and where they're going forward. I've answered questions, I've gotten back to people, I've sent emails, I've sent follow-up postcards, and day to day, every single day, they're asking, where's all this development, where is all this growth? And I think that what we need is more transparency and more resident involvement directly in the process. Our Amherst Town Plan is regularly amended, rezoning, planning board decisions are made behind closed doors with people feeling like they are not part of that process. And what I would do is hold open forums and be continually accessible. I'm accessible now. I can't tell you the amount of emails that I get that say, you're the first person to respond to me, or you're the first person that I've seen. And it's because I believe that when you are running for a town office, that you respond directly to the town residents. And that's what I intend to do, and to make them feel part of the process so that their voice and what they're looking for is represented. Thank you.
Thank you. In walking into the town, one of the big things that I'm hearing about is public safety. People are concerned. They know that we've got a lot of our current police officers that are retiring. We've got new folks coming in. We're also hearing about the fact that are we going to be properly funded for that? And as I started out my first statement, public safety in my eyes is police, fire, and highway. So we want to make sure again that we're having that kind of funding proper to that. People are concerned. We've got more cars being stolen in this town than we've ever had before. My neighborhood last week, someone climbed up the roof to the second floor of a particular house and broke in through the bedroom window because they knew the people were in Florida already. All right, we need to have more of that. We need to have more police on the street. We need to have more of a force out there to do that. So we need to reevaluate, determine what's our current police force, what is the number of people that we've got out there, how are we doing to make sure that we've got the right kind of funding possible to do that. As far as the planning board and the transparency of things, everything in that planning board has and will always be. It's run by what's the department. Everything is done by systematically, by rules, by the state, and everything is open. So there is no deals behind any planned doors there. Thank you.
I too have had a chance to walk door to door and talk to a number of constituents. And when I speak, the number one issue that's brought up to me, believe it or not, is traffic, because I'm on the Amherst Traffic Safety Board. And I can't tell you the number of residents who have said, have you tried to drive on Transit Road on a Saturday afternoon? Have you tried to drive on Niagara Falls Boulevard on a Sunday morning? And I understand. These roads were built at a time when Amherst was not a 130,000 some odd person community, but a much smaller community, and they are at or near capacity. And it's not just Transit Road and Niagara Falls Boulevard, but Maple, Sheridan Drive, et cetera, et cetera. Along with traffic, people complain about speeding. Speeding on residential streets, and that's another issue I take. And that's why the town is moving forward with experiments on speed tables, speed bumps, speed humps, to try and reduce traffic. And there are other try to reduce traffic and reduce speed to try and deal with many of these problems. That's the number one complaint I get. The number two complaint I get is also housing. And that's why I'm so excited to move forward on the Boulevard Mall. That will increase housing stock and other smaller developments throughout the town, because the pressure's on right now. People want to live in Amherst. They love our community. They love our amenity. They love our amenities, but housing prices are in fact very high, and we're doing what we can to try and reduce them.
Well, that's a lot of stuff. I've been going door to door, and I've been going person to person in my restaurant for 36 years. I've been volunteering for St. Vincent de Paul, all different organizations. I have sat with people during this COVID, mostly seniors, and the biggest thing that I've heard over all these years is their kids can't be here, no one's here to help them, they can't afford to go into any kind of living center. And their taxes are too high. How do they buy food? How do they get to the doctor? And when I tell you I volunteer doing that, I tell you that because I don't share the things that I do. That's why I'm running. Many seniors live in homes. We talk about cars, we talk about transportation, we talk about safety. All these apartments are going to bring, if 2 people live in it, 2 more cars. Not everybody's going to take the rapid transit, and not everybody's going to take a bus, and most people aren't going to walk because they're afraid to look behind them lately. And yes, people are speeding, they're doing all of these things. The other thing, though, that I hear is that there's no transparency in this government. I sit and I watch it, there's no conversation. Years ago, when I was on the town board, we had dialogue, and it might have been arguments, but we came up with solutions. And that's because we didn't have a one-party board. It is time to put the people back in control of their town. And that means you have to have compromise, you have to have balance, willing to work together. I have done that, my track record shows it. Feel free to ask me, I can show you the things, but I didn't do it alone. I did it with you, the people, because I always listen to you. You might not have liked the answer, but that's what I do.
We'll start with Mr. Gilmore with the next question. And you've already touched on some of those issues that questions have arisen. So, with the overdevelopment and extreme congestion and excessive spending, what would you do to correct this? What is your idea of smart development, transparency, and fiscal responsibility?
Smart development, I think, as I pointed out, is now in these days is looking at things of redevelopment. I know that we talked about the Boulevard Mall, we've talked about the Amherst Central Park, we've talked about the Northtown Plaza, we've talked about things that are happening in various communities. As far as overdevelopment, I don't think we're going to have to worry about that much anymore, because with interest rates rising the way they are, all right, the journal last week indicated that the average in the country is about 7.57, in Amherst it's over 8%. That combined with the cost of housing the way it is right now, people aren't going to be able to afford to build homes anymore. That's going to stop. Those things are seeing that already. The things coming into the planning department, much less than that all the time. You may have some housing or apartments and things of nature, because people have to find someplace to live. But with the constant increase of interest and things of that nature, and cost of building costs, it's $210 a square foot now to build a home in the town of Amherst. Do that with an average home of 30,000 or about 3,000 square feet, all right, with a lot of $150,000, it's $780,000 to build that house before the taxes. Taxes on that house are somewhere probably about $1,400 a month. That's going to stop. That's going to stop. You're going to see a lot of these things start to be reduced, so you're not going to have to worry about it anymore.
The
the overdevelopment and extreme congestion and excessive spending, what would you do to correct this? And then secondly, what is your idea of smart development, transparency, and fiscal responsibility?
Smart development and responsible development is, for example, what we have been working on with Amherst Town Board at the Boulevard Mall. We're taking an underutilized piece of property, revitalizing it, and turning it into mixed retail residential space that will ease some of the housing prices and still continue to provide for the tax base for the town of Amherst. Projects like that are exactly what we've been working on. Station 12 is the same way. Taking a piece of property that was underutilized and redeveloping it to make it a much higher usage piece of property. As for financial responsibility, that's another thing I've been proud that we've had a chance to work on. By taking items that we were once borrowing for example, police cars, and now putting in the regular town budget, you're not paying interest. You're not paying on the principal on the debt. Instead, it's a pay-as-you-go issue, something that we would all face as in our own regular budgets. I'm proud that I've been a part of that in the town. It's a real it's something I've been happy to work on, and it's something I've been successful in.
Can you repeat the question one more time? Please.
With the overdevelopment and extreme congestion and excessive spending, what would you do to correct this? And secondarily, what is your idea of smart development, transparency, and fiscal responsibility?
Well, when I was on the town board, I did all of these things. That's why I'm running. I want to hit the ground running. I know how it works. Number one, you get the people involved. We did Harlem, Kensington, Cleveland. I wasn't involved in politics. We got all the people involved. They were going to destroy Harlem Road, put 65 miles an hour down there and affect 24,000 people within the city of Buffalo, Cheektowaga, and Amherst. We put a plan together. We took it to our government. It's the people that have a say. You are the boss. We are not the boss. We work for you. That being said, there are all these projects. I'm fine with the Boulevard Mall and with Station 12, but all these other projects, stop and think about this. There are IDA abatements for this, abatements for that. Who's going to pay your grandchildren and children's school taxes if everybody is being abated? I'm not saying I have the answers to this, but these are questions that I've been hearing year after year after year, and no one is answering these questions. Yes, it's great to build all these high-rises, 4 feet high, 6 feet high, but you're still going to have cars. Where are they going to be parked? How are you going to get down the street to plow? Go to drive through some of these old neighborhoods that have beautiful homes and people like us live in them. So, I live above my restaurant, but all I'm saying to you is that this is real. And I'm not going to let anything happen without me asking the questions. I'm not afraid of it. I will ask during the town board meetings. I know there are people here that were at those meetings and would say they were obnoxious, but at the end of the day, you had your answers. And I'm running for you to give me the questions, and I will get you the answers. Did you say 20 minutes or seconds? I'm done. Okay. Got you. Thank you.
Okay, we begin with, I'm sorry. She's got to finish.
Thank you. So that's exactly what I'm hearing on the doors over and over every day from residents. And they're exactly right. When we're looking at what development should look like in the town, we should be focused on the redevelopment. Again, I applaud the Boulevard Mall. I applaud the Amherst IDA for clawing back some of the tax breaks that were given to Station 12 that they haven't been moving on for the last 2 years. But what I think we need to be asking ourselves is those members of the IDA, when they continue to do the pilots, as Shelley mentioned, which is a payment in lieu of taxes, those tax breaks are directly coming out of what we're going to have to pay and cover. So if Amherst is where these developers want to be and they want to keep building, they should be able to pay those taxes as we do every day as citizens and residents here in the town. I think it is important that we are also looking at the town plan and where people have purchased their homes in the past. When we talk about the 5 islands, those little streets where they're gonna put in, right along the back side of it, a 4-story apartment building. It needs to be rezoned. You have people who have owned their homes for decades, who are frustrated, who feel left out of the process. We need to allow for their voice to carry significant weight with the town board, and that's what I intend to do. I think that they need to be heard. There is a reason that developers are not donating to my campaign, because we need to be bringing in smart growth, and as we move forward, we need to have a resident focus to make sure that the people who are here in Amherst have their voices heard and their, what they want going forward for this town. Thank you.
Mr. Chicala, we'll begin with you with the next question, which is, how will you handle a constituent's complaint when they don't want a developer to build a parcel in their backyard?
Fortunately, I've had an opportunity to do this. It's not how I would handle it, it's how I've done it. There was a series of complaints about a piece of property on Main Street where residents were unhappy. They didn't want to see the development there. I had an opportunity to sit with the developer. I actually had an opportunity to sit with some of the residents. I know because some people at this table were here when I did that. I'm proud that I did that. I'm proud that I met with them. Together, that we all had an opportunity to work together to come to a solution. You simply can't say no to a developer because they bought a piece of property and they want a development, you just don't want it. On the other hand, that development needs to fit within the nature of the community, it fits within the nature of the neighborhood. And I like to believe that we found a compromise that made sense in that case, and we were able to work together. So the best way to do it is to work together, to sit with developers and residents, and find commonality, and find a sense of purpose, find a sense of neighborhood together, and make that happen.
I've had a lot of experience with this, and it is the people. The people have a voice, and we don't always agree, but that's the job, okay? And sometimes it's hurtful, you know, on both sides, because you just can't deal with it. But Mike's right, he was there. I was there as just sitting in the back. This is why I got involved. Again, another reason. We need to have board members that talk at the board meetings and discuss this. We need to have, when the supervisor says, does anybody have anything to say or any questions, that's when we, the elected person, the representative of you, must ask those questions. We're not given permission to sit there and be quiet. We're there to be your voice. That's not easy, it's hard. And you get called names and everything else, but that's okay too. But at the end of the day, it hasn't been working well. Because the people keep saying, how come I don't know? How come I didn't know? When am I gonna know? I don't want it. And I always say to them, listen, think of what you do want and tell them what you want. And I who have nothing to do with any of this, I reached out to a friend of mine, a person I know and respected, who I voted against his properties many times and stopped some of them. But at the end of the day, I said, please try to meet with the people. I mean, that's the key. You should meet with the people beforehand. That should be the first thing. We had committees that we would pull people together. You have Harlem, Kensington, Cleveland, you have Eggertsville, you have Willow Ridge. When the developer wants to do something, as the elected officials say, okay, we're going to meet the people, you sit there and talk to them and we'll figure it out from there.
So I agree, right? We should be giving those residents their voices, but what we need to be doing is more clearly publicizing what is going on at these town board meetings, what is on the agenda, and how we are going to be handling that going forward. We need to make sure that residents have a buy-in to know and understand what is coming up. I've done it in my day job in senior services. I know some of you were here, but I have held town halls across the county regularly to hear back from the older adults on how our programs are serving them and how they can be made better. And I think it is important that we continue to do that even as elected representatives for the town. What that means is to hold open forums, to make yourself accessible. And while there are some things you can't do when somebody does buy a property, the rezoning, the amendments, the changes to the town plan are things that the town board votes on. And the reason that they're voting on it is because it is not established the way that the town has been set up for what the property you have bought in the past is. And I think at that point is when we should be really discussing, does this make sense for the residents their neighborhoods and what they're looking for. And I think that voice should hold the most weight. Again, we are an amazing community. It is no surprise to me that businesses want to be here. I am married to a small business owner. I know those struggles. He comes home every day and tells me all about them. You know, we bought a business during the pandemic and we have continued to grow it and work at it and make it thrive, and very proud of it. So I know what that's like, but at the same time, what he does doesn't outweigh what a resident needs in their town. And I think that where our priority needs to be is on those voices.
Thank you. Yeah, I can speak to the fact with regards to compromise. There was a project on Main Street again, you're right, that when it came in front of us, the planning board, all right, there was residents that had some concerns about it because of the size of it. And again, we went back to the developer and we said to them, all right, like Shelley and Mike and others have said, as far as that, and asking them to go back and talk to the residents. They tell us they do that, all right? There's attorneys that come in front of us all the time and representing them. Some of those attorneys that come in front of us and said they've met with residents. Some of the residents come up and verify that. Sometimes, maybe some residents feel that they've not had that say-so on that. I agree, we want always, we're there as a representative for the body, for the people. We're also there understanding within the rules and the confines of within development how things work, and we try to compromise and do things together. And we'll always try to do that. But I think everyone has to do that. If in fact there's opportunities where we can get more group discussion together, that's great. But again, people have to get involved in that. Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. Thank you.
Okay. We'll start with Ms. Shreds next. Will you advocate for the Amherst Central Park Greenway connecting Ellicott Creek and Tonawanda Creek to the Niagara River, Greening Commission, and the Erie Canal National Heritage Corridor? Yes, ma'am. Will you advocate for the Amherst Central Park Greenway connecting Ellicott Creek and Tonawanda Creek to the Niagara River, Greening Commission, and the Erie Canal National Heritage Corridor?
Yes, and when I was on the town board, I had proposed as the liaison to the Veterans Committee that we take over by the canal there and turn that into a Veterans Canal Park because of the history over there. And I created a Veterans Committee to be a part of this so they could tell us what they wanted. And we had a vision, it was beautiful. We went to Tonawanda and looked at theirs. Okay, I get it, yes, but now that's not happening. We're moving the historical museum, we're taking it over to the golf course. There was a time with the golf course, okay, with Westwood. I thought that would be a beautiful place where they could take the town hall and put it in that beautiful building and leave that park in the back. They do that in New Jersey. And they could put them at the town hall on Main Street, a boutique hotel, which belongs there, because that's what they have going on there. We're taking away our green space, we're destroying it, or we say we're enhancing it. But did anybody ask the people that live over there that are going to butt up to it how that new wonderful place is going to affect their life? No, of course not. But and they say it's going to be wonderful, it's going to be better. So now, yes, I support anything that has to do with keeping what's green and what's beautiful. That's what kids need to do. They need to look up, look at the stars, see the night bugs if they're still alive anymore. I don't think so. I haven't seen any. We just need to live our life and enjoy this Amherst for what it was and what it should stay and continue to be. A beautiful home, bedroom community with lots of high-rise apartments and everything else, but still Amherst, which makes it special.
So yes, I too would support and advocate for the continued connection between our town parks and preserving that green space. I am proud to be the only, what was the question then? I'm sorry.
The Amherst Central Park Greenway connecting Ellicott Creek and Tonawanda Creek to the Niagara River. It's Greenway Commission and the Erie Canal National Heritage Corridor.
Right, so to continue, so again, I agree with that preservation and the continuation of green space and connecting our parks as they are. I am proud to be the only candidate that has been endorsed by the Sierra Club for my outlook in making sure that we are an environmentally friendly committee so that my children and their children have a community in which they can continue to grow and explore and live freely. When we plant 1 million trees, brand new trees do not have the same benefits that the trees that have already been here for decades do. They don't do the same cleaning of carbon dioxide, and they don't do the same growth and structure into the ground. So what we need to do is make sure that we are preserving that green space, which again goes back to responsible redevelopment, focusing on spaces that have already been developed and getting them back out of the tax rolls, back into ways that we can build our budget, but keeping the green space that we currently have as is as much as possible. And so I'm excited about the opening of Amherst Central Park now that it has been closed down, and I look forward to, I think Mike said, the first shovels going in April, and I'm excited about what that looks like going forward. I have spoken to that community. I've knocked on those doors several times, and most of them are aware that the Westwood has closed. It's going to be Amherst Central Park, and what they want to see is not development in that area. They don't want more traffic on their residential roads. They want people to be able to use it. They want the residents there, but they don't want loud changes to the community that they have been growing in. And I think that the new plan that I've seen so far, it will move that way forward in keeping it a more natural preserve that allows us to work together.
Thank you. First off, with regards to the question of it, yes, I would support something like that. You have to have some better understanding of it, but absolutely. I think, too, I'd love to see the fact that we finish the penal line within the town. I would love to see that so that we can, again, so that people can walk, families can walk, or ride their bike, or jog, or do whatever they want. We seem to have something that stops at Transit Road in the north parts of the town, and it doesn't come back up again until we have to Niagara Falls Boulevard. And then, whatever that stretch is, a couple of miles, that's the broken link for all kinds of paths and traveling throughout the entire area. So I would love to see that put into place. And there again, you're right, there's the balance of what people enjoy, what families enjoy doing, keeping them together, utilizing the nice things that we have within the town. And so anything we can do like that would be great. But I would love to see the finishing of that Pena line, because I think that would really enhance the area. I think that would be something that everyone would enjoy using. They've got to either walk over to Clarence now, or they've got to walk, some other locations to do that. I know in Tonawanda they love it, Clarence they love it, and it's enhanced the value of property for anybody that orders up to it. So I'd like to see that too. That combined with some of these other kinds of things, I think we're only there again. When we talk about quality of life, that certainly is quality of life.
Yes, I too support it, and I believe that to make that possible, to make that sort of greenway connection make sense, we would need to once again turn the peanut line into some sort of a connection to that. And I think that that's an excellent idea because it supports the netting in of the community. It is amenities like Amherst Central Park, the bike path, that make this community such a desirable place to live. Preserving those, keeping those, and expanding those is why many people want to live in this community. Of course I support it.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll come back to Ms. Marinucci, I think. The next, I think, Shelley started, right? Yes, back to Ms. Marinucci. All right, and we'll just have a couple more questions so that we can have time for closing statements and then hopefully be finished. So with that, we'll move on, and some of these might be a little bit shorter. So, do you support the continuation of term limits for most town positions?
So I think that the term limits that are in place should not be changed, and as they move forward, they're here, and that's the way that Amherst has established that, and when it was voted, I believe when Shelley was on the board, right, Shelley? Thank you. But what I think is more important than term limits is campaign finance reform and looking at how people are getting their money and building large campaign finance accounts that makes it impossible to challenge long-term people who hold offices. So I am excited that there is an opportunity to go on an open seat due to those term limits, and I think that the Amherst community has shown us that they want them, and so that they're in place. I do support them staying in place. If there are changes that are needed, it should be going again in front of the voters and the residents of Amherst to make sure that this is what they want. But on a larger scale, when I'm thinking about it, I really think that we need campaign finance reform and not allowing people to carry huge campaign accounts that makes it impossible to challenge them. People should have to regularly be in front of those that are electing them and earning their votes on a day-to-day basis, year to year, and term to term. Thank you.
Could you repeat the question, please?
you support keeping the term limits for the current positions in Amherst?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think they've seemed to work so far. I don't, in every instance, I don't really know if anybody's really challenging that. I know that, or again, go back to when Shelley was on the board, she put some limits into place. They seem to be working, so by all means, let's do that.
Since I'm finishing my first term, should I be elected, of course, that would be my second and my final term under term limits. I support term limits. I believe, and you do see it at other levels of government, where elected officials get into office and they begin to believe that they are entitled, they begin to get complacent. I think term limits force you as an elected official to come up with an agenda, deal with it as soon as possible, and if you can't get it done, then you end up stepping aside for someone else. I think it's appropriate, and I do support term limits.
So when it came up years ago, I know it was going on throughout the county, and I circulated petitions and asked people if they wanted them. And it was a yes all the way around. They want it all the way up to Washington right now. We've all heard it. Like, people are 100 years old, they should resign or retire. But anyway, that's here and there. But fortunately for the town of Amherst, we had some people in the legal department that helped do it and taught and showed me how to do it, and we did it. But we did it because that's what the people wanted. I support term limits. I only want one term. I termed myself out. But I will say this, where I have a concern, another reason why I pray to be elected, is because there is conversation that our current board and supervisor are going to overturn these term limits because there's some kind of a sentence in there or something that makes it where the state or somebody said, now you can't do something. I don't know that that's true, but if you support term limits, you need to put it in writing, send it to the town, and say, don't even think about it. Because that's the only way you hold control of the town. You're the boss. We're the servants. I've been in public service my whole life. It's called the restaurant business. And you do what your customers ask you to do. You find a way to make them happy and come back. This is up to us. We get one bite at this apple. But let them know. Don't sit and wait. Tell all your friends. There is a rumor they're going to overturn it. They're just going to undo it. They don't even have to overturn it because there was no referendum. It was found that we didn't have to have a referendum.
Could that be verified? I hate to leave here not knowing if that's just a rumor or if there's...
No, it can't be verified because I am one Republican with all Democrats, okay? And I'm running, and I respect that position.
And that's why I don't want...
So I can't, I'm telling you...
Excuse me, I'm going to have to interrupt because, I'm sorry, she has
Can that be
to...
verified?
I'm sorry?
Can that be verified?
I'm sorry, I don't know what can be verified.
I haven't spoken to anyone.
I haven't spoken. I had a resident tell me, someone within the town, someone in the town board, someone in the government has made that statement. I don't have that answer, but I just learned this 2 days ago.
But does anyone care now?
I can answer this question, and I'd like to do so. The town term limits law was written by then attorney Dan Ward. And there is another town in New York State that used the law that he based on. And that law was challenged, and it was successfully overturned. However, our law is not exactly written the same way. There is a question that whether or not that law is valid or not. That's true right now. However, we don't know if it's valid or not, and someone would need to go to court to challenge it. I will tell you right now, I will not challenge it, and I will tell you if I'm elected again, I will abide by the 2-term limit rule. And maybe that's the question you should ask everybody here. I would also support and the revision of a new term limits law that eliminates the flaw. But once again, we don't know if there's a flaw. We just know that another town, which has a similar law, challenged it and it was overturned. But once again, I will tell you, I will support the 2-term limit law if I'm elected again.
Excuse me, if I can intervene, because this is getting, it's not off the topic, but the idea is to listen to them. And her term is up, you just have to take that.
There's something that Mike said, and I'm going to say this.
This is not a debate.
No, it's not a debate. It's an answer to the question.
I do think she had some time
The attorney,
I will allow that.
the attorney that helped me in the town do this is gonna punch me in the nose, but he's sitting right here. He's the one that wrote the law. It wasn't Dan Ward, okay? So I didn't hear this from him. I'm hearing it from restaurants, restaurants, oh my God, from residents. It's something that has been put out there. That's it. And I'm asking you to go find the answer, because I can't get it.
Okay, thank you. If we could get back, because we do want to wrap this up and maybe you can talk about it later. I'm sorry, we just don't have time for that. We're going to finish a couple of questions and then you may be able to check on that. Okay. I'm sorry, we're back to Mr. Gilmore. Yes.
We've all
Yes, we have. So, okay. Now I've lost where we were. We'll start with Mr. Gilmore, right? Each year, the town board appoints at least one person to the zoning board and planning board. How do you select the best person?
I believe the town board does. I know there's a variety of different things that they've done. They've solicited. There are people that have asked, and they write in and ask if they can be part of it. I believe they look at it from the standpoint of their credentials, what they have to bring to it, and then it's a decision based on the town board. I'm not a member of the town board, so I don't know how that's. I can tell you that certainly being on some of these other boards, it's not. They don't come and ask us what we think about it. That's something that's done at their level because they're the ones that are reviewing qualifications and things and doing that. So, from a town board perspective, I would do the same thing. I would look at it from, what are the qualifications of somebody? Why do they want to become a member of that particular board? What are they going to bring forth to it? How is the balance of things of that? Right? Because it's important. It's important that and it's a commitment. Are they going to have the commitment to do it?
Yeah, you're directing your questions to the audience. Mr. Zucco.
As a town board member, people approach me at church, Tim Hortons, at the grocery store, and they ask to volunteer at different committees. If you look at the Amherst town board minutes, they list out the committees and the number of openings. And people who are familiar with town board events, whether they come to a town board meeting or they read the minutes, they see which committees have openings, and they often approach town board members or town employees and ask to be appointed to committees. Many committees in the town are shorthanded. It's difficult to find volunteers. There's a lot of reading, there's a lot of activity. Some of these committees have significant work to do. It's not always easy to find volunteers. If someone volunteers, we do the best that we can to put them in a position where we can use their skill set, where we can use their enthusiasm as best as possible. But some committees right now are open.
Okay, I have a little experience with this. If you want to be on a committee for disabilities or minority women or something like that, okay, you can ask, you'll be appointed. But if you want to be on a committee and you have the expertise and you understand what's going on and you've been engaged in your community and you would like to be on the planning board, the zoning board, a board that makes a difference, that's up to political parties. I was elected the first time and went to my first sit-down, how exciting meeting. And I don't care if this costs me the election. I'm going to tell you this is how this stuff works. It's crap. And I had this man who was a Democrat who worked on my committee, and he was an amazing man. He was a police officer. He carried everybody's everything. And I wanted to have him appointed to the planning board because he was one of the people that started the Edwardsville Community Organization. He understood it. And I was told I had no say, I was just elected. I said, excuse me, I have a say, I was the #1 vote getter, and he did this, he's a Democrat, we'll decide. I actually got up from that table and I said, okay, fine, I'm gonna go to the meeting tonight and I'm gonna resign from the board because I'm not doing this. They agreed to let this person be it. He was one of the best people on the planning board. He had integrity. I'm not here to rip apart parties or anything like that. This is up to you to pick the people that you know have your back. And your neighbor's back and your kid's back and everybody else's. That's why we're here. Hold us accountable. Don't let us cheat. Let us be your person. And if it's these 3 people or 2 people, I'm okay with it. But I'm here to tell you how it really works. And it's not pretty. But I hope to be able to do that for you. You have 4 years of me, full time.
So I think it gets back to the same thing I've been saying all night, is that people aren't aware of the ways that they can be part of the community and part of these boards. We have a lot of people up here who have been insiders and have known their elected officials and have been asked to be put on these boards for years and decades so that they could volunteer and be part of it. I've been asking for 3 years. I've sent letters to be on the library board, the youth board, the things that are important to me. But because of whatever friends and family plan it is, it's not something that I've been able to have the opportunity to do. What I think it should be is an open option so that people, it's not in the minutes, it's not hidden away, it's not something you're not aware of. It's something that you are able to see where there are openings, that they are put out and publicized to encourage as many volunteers who wish to be on those boards to submit their requests with their application or their resume so that you can look at their qualifications and why they're applying for their specific board. I say we have a bumper sticker on our fridge that I love public art and public libraries. Those are my 2 things that are my passion in life. I have 2 girls, or 3 daughters, excuse me. Oh my goodness, my baby will be 6 tomorrow. I have 3 daughters, and that is what we do. We go to a new city, we see their library, and we go to their public murals and things like that. That is what I wanted to be part of in this town. But what happens is you need to know people, and you need to have ability to get in there, and you have to be their friends, and you have to want to do things in a certain way. So it's funny to me that someone who's been on these boards for decades doesn't know how you get on them. But to me, what we need to do is encourage qualified people to apply for those boards so that we can have better applicants and better choices so that the most qualified people are helping our residents and available. Thanks.
So we've had everybody's addressed that question. Yes. Okay. At this time, I'm going to have one last question, but I do want to interrupt just briefly because of an oversight I made, and I apologize to Mr. Floss, who is a candidate here for the highway superintendent. And if you could just stand, Mr. Floss, I apologize. His opponent is not here, but I do want to recognize that he's here, and I do apologize. So we'll wrap up, and then we'll go to closing statements. So you'll be able to check this. Before I get right back to this, did I miss any other candidate? I hope not, but I do apologize. Oh, okay, but the opponent is not, so I didn't get a chance, sorry. Yeah, I got something that said that he said he couldn't be here. Okay. In any event, let's go back for this one last question, and then we'll have closing statements. All right. This starts with Mrs. Zuccotti, I think, correct? That's correct. Are you willing to work with neighborhood groups on neighborhood issues?
Yes, because I've done it.
This is addressed.
My track record shows that. I've worked with neighborhood groups in Snyder. I've worked with neighborhood groups at Amherst Central Park. I've worked with neighborhood groups in Glen Park. I've worked with neighborhood groups throughout the past 4 years. Yes, and my track record shows that I've done it.
I started one. It was the Harlem Kensington Cleveland Business Association and a community organization. And it was through all the people coming to the restaurant. We ended up, I told you, I think 24,000 people in our neighborhood, in our areas, came together to work on what was best for their community. Edwardsville Community Center organization. I was a member of that forever, one of the people involved in that. There's so many different things, absolutely. We need more of these, and it's an honor. It's an absolute honor to meet the people in the neighborhoods and hear their stories of how they lived and how they got there and how long they've been there. And you know what? That's why this is important. And that's what other towns don't have. They don't have what Amherst has. We have connectivity, you know, and that's what needs to stay this way. So I know how to do it. And we used to have a thing in the clerk's office, and we had all the community organizations. You might remember this. Their names and everything was in there. If I'm elected, I'm going back to that, and I'm going to call you when something comes up and say, hey, they're going after your neighborhood. They're going to do this. Get your people together and tell us who to call when the meeting's happening.
Absolutely. It's the same thing I've been saying all night. I think it is incredibly important that the residents have a voice in all aspects of town government and the future of the town of Amherst. I'm incredibly proud that I have run a campaign that is funded solely by individuals and not by developers or other corporate interests. What is important to me is that we are always representing the residents of this town and how they see going forward. That doesn't mean we don't want development. That doesn't mean that we're not inviting to business. It means that we are looking at what this town is doing and how it's moving forward, and we are prioritizing the voices of those who live here. I have been thrilled to be invited to speak to some of these organizations, both in the past and this year, and I will continue to do so. We are a town of 130,000 residents without any districts. Each neighborhood is different. Each neighborhood has its own characteristics, and it's important that you speak directly to those neighborhoods and those neighbors to see what they need. Because I love Trader Joe's, and I'm excited about a Costco, but I'm terrified of Ridgely Road, and when I talk to the neighbors that are nearby there, they are very frightened of what that traffic is going to look like for them and what that looks like. So I don't go to Trader Joe's on Saturday because it's a busy parking lot and I've got small children. But what is important to me is that we are representing what the people who are in those areas. I've also spoken with residents who are wondering why things are leaving Transit Road, that everything is going towards the boulevard and that they're feeling left out. I think it is important that you are moving around the neighborhoods and speaking to the people who are directly impacted by those developments and the changes to the town. Thank you.
Could you repeat the question? Okay. I believe it's, am I willing to work with neighborhood groups? The whole
We
reason,
work with neighborhood
the whole
groups.
reason I'm looking forward to running for this town board is just for those reasons. We've had the opportunity through the years, various boards that I've worked on, whether it's been groups, whether it's been two people, whether it's been one person, whether they call you on the telephone, whether you go to meet them, that's what we're here about. We're servicing the public. That's what it's all about, getting their viewpoints to things and trying to determine the direction we're going. But remember, we're also working within, in some instances, guidelines and rules that we have to deal with. And that's part of it is in that conversation with folks, explaining to them, this is how the process works. I recently had a conversation with someone on Dodge Road because they were concerned about a development that was going up across the street from them. And I went through the steps of the process of how things are evaluated, how things are looked at. And then quite honestly, what options the person had moving forward, what they could do as far as asking questions about things and so forth. It's very rewarding to do that. You get grounded sometimes in some of these things when you do talk to some of these folks. You hear what their concerns are. So absolutely, to me, that's what this is all about.
You're willing to work with neighborhood groups. You started with that, correct? Yes, that's what I thought. Okay. All right. At this time, I would like to begin the closing statements. And as I said, we will go in the reverse. So we'll start with Ms. Shelley Stratz. And we have 2 minutes for closing statements.
Well, I'd like to thank all of you for staying this long on a Bills football game night. Let's hope it works out. Anyway, look, I'm running, I told you why, for one reason. And I love this town. My husband was raised here, I was raised here, our kids are raised here. I know hundreds and thousands of people I've met from my restaurant. I even learned from Mr. Floss the other night, and he almost brought me to tears. My dad died when he was 35. And him and my mom, when they got married, they moved to Buffalo for a very short time. And then they moved back to Jersey. And there was always this picture of a man in this photo album, and I never knew who it was. And after he had his little debate and everything, he came up, he said, my mom and dad lived next door to your mom and dad on Millicent, and they were best friends. It was like, oh my God, how did this happen? And I've known him, and he tells me the story. So I went home and I called my aunt and I said, oh my God, I met mom and dad's next door neighbors from Millicent. Do you know she knew that her name and told me stories? That's why it's so great. We all have something to be connected to. And let's stay connected in a positive way. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or Democrat, who cares? This is Buffalo, this is Amherst, it's not Washington, D.C., and it's not Albany. We're okay right now, anyway. So thank you. Please consider voting for me whenever day you choose to go voting. I can make you one promise. I work for you. Don't worry about me not listening. I only don't listen to my husband. That's the only person.
Yes, thank you all so much for your time. Today, of course, it's especially valuable. Once again, my name is Mike Sukawa, and I am your sitting town board member. 4 years ago, I ran on a platform of preserving green space. Amherst Central Park is a big part of that, and I'm proud to have been associated with it. I ran on a platform of responsible development. The redevelopment of the Boulevard Mall and section Station 12 is an important part of what I've done. I have a track record where I've kept my promises. I have a track record of success. I'm asking you to help me to continue to do that. Please support me November 2nd, November 7th. Please vote Mike Sukawa. Thank you.
Yes, thank you all for coming this evening. It's been a privilege to sit in front of you and answer some of your questions. I'm doing this, unlike the others who I admire that are working at one job or two jobs and wanting to serve with us. I only have the one job. If I'm fortunate enough to get your support in November, all right? I retired. I retired in July, so I'm here for that. But I want you to know something. You're very fortunate. Everybody up here, there are quality people. They're all going to do the great job for you in service you moving forward. So you're very fortunate. Anybody you select here this evening is going to be outstanding for you moving forward. So that's great. So, you know, certainly from my perspective, I'm looking to work with whomever is elected. I've done that my entire time. We talked about as far as getting appointed to boards. If the fact that the party was doing the appointments to boards, I certainly wouldn't be here anymore, because for a long time, you know, there's been a Democratic town board in this town, and I'm a Republican. But it was about working together with folks, all right, trying to do the right kinds of things. And that's what I'm looking forward to doing here. I decided to run forward this because I do like Shelley and everyone else here. We love the town. We want to continue to service the town. We want to hear from the people. We want to do what we think is right. I've had the opportunity, I've got the support of the Amherst Police Club, the Good Government Club, and the Polish American Civic Affairs Club. Brian, forgive me if I didn't exactly say that right. So I appreciate the support of all of those folks. I certainly appreciate your time this evening. I look forward to serving you moving forward. My name is Bob Gilmore. I am running for town board, and I hope that your support, whether it's this weekend or anytime thereafter between there and the 7th. Thank you so much.
Well, wonderful that everybody has been here. Thank you to the Amherst Senior Center for hosting us. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting this on. And thank you to...
That's Thursday, November 16th, from 5 to 7 o'clock at Meet with Whiskey and Wine at 5175 Trans